Let's go to Russell in Kansas City, Missouri. Russell, what's your question for Adriel?
Yes, your explanation of 1 Corinthians 15:44, please. It is sown a natural body, is raised a spiritual body. If there is a natural body, then there is also a spiritual body.
Okay, so 1 Corinthians 15:44. Let me just begin in verse 42. And for those of you who are not familiar with 1 Corinthians chapter 15, in this chapter, Paul is making a case for the resurrection of the dead, for the bodily resurrection. Part of the issue was it seems like there were people teaching in Corinth that there was no resurrection. Some have suggested that maybe they were teaching that the resurrection had already happened. So Paul is correcting some false teaching that was probably floating around during the days of the Corinthians. And so in verse 42, he begins and says, "So it is with the resurrection of the dead. What is sown perishable, what is sown is perishable, what is raised is imperishable. It is sown in dishonor, it is raised in glory. It is sown in weakness, it is raised in power. It is sown a natural body, it is raised a spiritual body. If there is a natural body, there is also a spiritual body. Thus it is written, the first man, Adam, became a living being. The last Adam became a life-giving spirit. But it is not the spiritual that is first, but the natural, and then the spiritual." Now, here's where people can get confused about these verses. Is Paul saying that the resurrection body is just this sort of spirit body, that it's not a real physical body? No, that's not what he's saying at all. And the proof of that is he makes it clear earlier in 1 Corinthians that our resurrection follows the resurrection of Jesus. And Jesus, in his resurrection, was bodily, physically raised. I mentioned earlier on the program how he's sitting down with Peter after his resurrection, eating a fish breakfast by the beach. I mean, he's there. He can say to his disciples, "Look at my body. Feel, Thomas, feel the scars in my hand." And so this idea of being raised a spiritual body doesn't mean that we're not physical. It's spiritual as in the sense of new creation, raised by the Spirit, perfected, glorified. That's the resurrection that we look forward to. And here Paul is just getting the order straight. He's saying, look, we begin, this is a natural man, this physical body, but we're raised incorruptible by the grace of the Holy Spirit. And that's what we look forward to, brothers and sisters, as Christians. Too many people, when they think about salvation, they assume that salvation, what Jesus did for us, is he made it so that we could go to heaven when we die. You ask Jesus in your heart, and then you get to go to heaven when you die, and then we're going to float around as disembodied spirits for all eternity, and heaven is the end goal. No, actually, being disembodied spirits that's the intermediate state we refer to it as. It's not the end goal. The end goal is the resurrection of the dead and the life of the world to come. That's why Jesus rose from the dead, so that we might be raised. And that's what Paul is looking forward to here in 1 Corinthians 15, the perfection of our bodies, the consummation, if you will, the very end of our redemption at the resurrection from the dead. And that's what he's highlighting there in those verses. And so, Russell, thank you for that question. God bless.